8 humans have been abducted onto a strange planet. They are about to face the most ferocious hunters in the universe. Predator takes pride in hunting down powerful creatures. Now they are caught as prey in the hunting ground, and in the face of such a desperate situation, can the weak human beings finally turn out to be victorious? At the beginning of the story, Special Agent Royce wakes up and finds himself 10,000 meters in the air. Luckily, Royce managed to open his parachute at the last moment when he was about to land. After the woods to ease the impact, he also fell heavily on the ground. When Royce woke up again, he found himself in a rainforest. Before he could observe the situation around him, another human was falling from the air. Looking at each other's hands holding weapons, the atmosphere between the two instantly tensed up. When they were confronting each other, another human fell from the sky, but because he couldn't open his parachute in time, his body was twisted and distorted by the fall. The sudden change of events also eased the tense atmosphere. However, at this time, the bullets came toward them quickly. Fortunately, both were skilled and immediately hid behind a large tree. Royce then quickly moved in the direction of the gunfire. He soon found the location of the attackers. While the other man was changing bullets for his weapon, Royce immediately approached the target quietly but did not shoot directly. He could already tell that this person should be in the same situation as them. When Cuchillo also arrived, the three began to exchange information. Nikolai served in the Russian Special Forces and fought in the war before arriving here. Cuchillo was a Mexican drug lord killer. He was unconscious after a flash of light, and when he woke up again, he was in this strange place. Royce's experience is the same as theirs, but before they could get more information, a sniper aimed at them not far away. But when she sees they are also human, Isabel drops her weapon. As a wilderness survival expert, she had never seen a forest like this on Earth. As the group moves on, they soon find the Resistance Mombasa and the one it stands, Edwin, a doctor who claims to be on the job, and Hanzo, a master swordsman from the Japanese Yakuza. Because all of them had the same encounter, they temporarily formed a small team. Afterward, under the continuous search, they soon found a strange totem, and underneath it, countless corpse bones had decayed. Mombasa is judged by African customs. In some primitive cannibal tribes, the more loot is a proof of power and honor. Some in the group thought it was a test, a kidnapping, or some experiment. Everyone has made different guesses, but all this is not important now. They had to think about how to get out of here. Next on the way, Royce finds that the way to determine the direction on Earth is useless here, and he has never seen the sun in the sky. Plus, except for Edwin, who seemed out of place among them, everyone else had extraordinary combat power, so it seemed they had all been carefully selected. As the crowd continued to advance, they soon discovered an unknown iron cage. When they uncovered the top tarp, they found the cage was empty. They judged by the blood stains left on the door that other creatures had been dropped there, and they were probably not human. Seeing that there were many such cages around, the group realized the seriousness of the problem. Then they immediately began to look for favorable terrain. However, as they continued to explore, Mombasa accidentally triggered a trap. When calm was restored, everyone immediately took out their weapons. Then they also saw a dead human. By the way, the traps were set up. Royce deduced that the man had to deal with an unusually tall enemy, but in the end, the prey evaded the traps and killed him. It seems that a horrible hunter and killer is hiding in the forest. The group then quickly found a nearby high point. However, the next scene saw but completely overturned everyone's perception, only to see in the sky not far away. Hanging in the sky is not the sun at all, but an unknown starry sky. Now everyone finally knew that they had come to a strange planet. Before anyone could get back to their senses, there was a sudden commotion from behind them. An ugly-looking monster was coming towards the team quickly. The crowd immediately began to shoot. With their fierce shooting, the monster was smashed into pieces before it could get close. However, the crisis didn't end there. There was no telling how many more monsters were hiding in the grass. The unarmed team members immediately evacuated first, but Edwin was discovered by a monster when he was running away. Edwin fell to the ground in a panic. The monster was getting closer and closer to him, but fortunately, Isabel also noticed the crisis. When the monster was about to pounce on Edwin, Isabel shot the beast in the head. At the same time, another member of the team, Stans, was also attacked by the monster because he didn't have a gun in his hand. Stans could only resist the monster's bite while attacking it with his dagger, but such an attack cannot do any damage to the monster. Fortunately, at this time, Mombasa heard the commotion and arrived in time. Under his attack, the monster soon lost its reaction. On the other hand, the number of monsters attacking them was even greater, and the monsters were so resilient that the attacks from ordinary weapons seemed to have little effect. Seeing that their ammunition was getting low, Royce immediately took out the saber he was wearing. The moment the monster lunged, he directly cut off the monster's head with a knife. On the other hand, Isabel was preparing to evacuate with Edwin, but then another monster spotted them. Isabel wanted to use the sniper rifle to attack, but the weapon jammed at a critical moment. Isabel can only take out the pistol crazy shooting, but the monster directly against the bullet on the rush. The monster was getting closer and closer. Desperate, Isabel pointed the pistol directly at herself. However, at this time, with a whistle sounded, the monster was about to rush over but immediately stopped in its tracks and quickly left the place. When the crisis was over, the group quickly reunited. Royce, judged by the corpse form of the monsters and the fact that a kind of whistle controlled them, thought these monsters should be similar to the Earth's hunting dogs. They are just a means for hunters to test their prey, and now they have become the prey of others. This planet is a large hunting ground. When everyone was still digesting this information, Mombasa found that one person was missing from the team. Before they could start looking, the voice of Cuchillo came from not far away. When the group went there, according to the voice, they found Cuchillo was turning his back on them and kept asking for help. After the group slowly approached, Royce found that Cuchillo seemed seriously injured. Isabel immediately wanted to go to the rescue, but Royce stopped her at this time. This bizarre scene is a trap. As Royce threw a stone, the trap on the ground was immediately triggered. Faced with this situation, they knew that Cuchillo was dead for sure. The crowd chose to leave the place as soon as possible, while Isabel, who was walking last, had a soft heart at that moment. She took up the weapon and ended Cuchillo's suffering. Just as Isabel was about to leave, her teammates' cry for help sounded again, but it turned out that Cuchillo had already lost his life. The cry for help was just a tool used by the hunters to lure them in. Then the team started to move on. Royce knows the hunter's habit. Once the prey begins to run in panic, it is a great time for hunters to start hunting. So now they must remain calm and then take the opportunity to figure out the opponent's bottom. Royce soon found the hound's footprints on the ground, and as they tracked along, the team did find an unknown camp. By the time the group arrived inside carefully, the sight of the place had taken everyone by surprise. The bodies of different races were hanging on the stakes like bacon, and the ground was littered with the bones and remains of various creatures. So humans were not the only prey there, and as they continued their search, they also saw a horrible creature tied to a shelf. This was the first time humans had seen Predator, but now he was tied up like prey. Nikolai immediately went up to check it out with curiosity. The next second, to his surprise, the Predator woke up and started roaring at the human. Looking at this ugly monster, Isabel thought they should leave the place immediately. However, at this moment, Mombasa was suddenly attacked, and several spears pierced his body directly. Royce immediately rushed out from the shadows and started firing wildly at a short distance away. Under the powerful fire coverage, the hunter could no longer maintain the state of stealth. Nikolai and Royce stayed behind for cover. However, their attacks could not hit the enemy at all, and because the Gatling firepower was too powerful, Predator's first target was Nikolai. His weapon was immediately destroyed, and Nikolai immediately turned around and fled. The Predator then activated the infrared tracking function, and an explosion sounded behind him. However, the crisis began. As countless infrared rays were locking onto them, the crowd only kept running away frantically. Finally, they all fled to a river, and only then did they escape Predator's pursuit. However, they did not know that the drone had detected their movements. Soon, the drone flew to the previous camp. This is when the stealthy Predator finally showed its true face. There are 3 new Predators here, and they are more powerful than one another. They are 2 new Predators and the boss Berserker, and they will continue to hunt next. On the other hand, the crowd that escaped began to implode. Isabel thought Royce was using them as bait, but Royce explained that they had to find out the enemy's identity, so some sacrifice was inevitable. Now they at least got the enemy's information. Predators look strong, can be stealthy, and use missiles and energy weapons. After understanding the enemy's combat characteristics, the group immediately ambushed the jungle and let Edwin act as bait to lure Predator. Sure enough, a monster soon caught up with him. The group thought this was Predator, and Isabel pulled the trigger after aiming. However, when everyone got closer, they realized that the one that was killed was not a predator at all but another kind of prey that ran out of the cage. The expressions on everyone's faces froze instantly, and then a figure slowly appeared behind Royce. However, Predator did not attack, slowly removing the mask from his face. At this time, the crowd finally saw a human being inside the armor. The man's name is Noland, the human who was dropped here as prey, but now he is the only one left alive. He knew that the crowd now had a lot of doubts, but they needed to get out of there as soon as possible. Noland then led them to a broken ship, also his temporary base. When everyone was safe, Noland also solved everyone's doubts. The Predator is the hunter-killer on this planet, but they are also divided into two races. Those hunting humans belong to the new Predator. Their body size is much taller and stronger. The one they saw in the camp was the classic Predator. Once the two races met, they would kill each other. Now the new Predators dominate the hunting grounds. They bring in different prey every season so that their people can practice their killing skills. And Noland has been here for 10 seasons. He's even killed a few Predators in that time, and that's how he got his equipment. But with each new season, new Predators are added to this place. The only way they could get out of there was to grab Predator's spaceship, but they didn't know how to fly it. After saying this, Noland is ready to go to bed, and when he leaves, he also reminds everyone to keep their voices down. After Noland fell asleep, everyone started to look at the surroundings. Hanzo then found a samurai sword here. Royce had a plan. Although they wouldn't be able to fly the alien ship, the Predator in the camp would. The enemy of the enemy is a friend. They may be able to reach cooperation between. Just when everyone was relaxing their guard, a lot of smoke suddenly rose from the room, and even the only exit was blocked, while Noland, who was sleeping, disappeared at this time. Edwin instantly made a judgment. Noland must be trying to kill them and then grab the equipment. At this time, outside the door, it is indeed Noland creating smoke, and he also kept talking to himself into the air next to him. It turns out that in the 10 seasons of Intense Escape, Noland has long had schizophrenia. Seeing that the people in the room were reacting to the poisoning, Royce immediately used a blasting bomb against the wall, and the huge commotion here soon attracted the attention of Predator. Noland immediately tried to escape, but he just ran to the exit, and Predator had already chased him there. Under Predator's attack, Noland was directly blown to pieces by a cannon. At this time, the trapped people also finally escaped. They started to look for an exit inside the ship, but the passage was very complicated, and Edwin, the last one to go, was soon separated from the group. He began to shout in the passage. This behavior soon attracted Predator. Looking at the looming figure in front of him, Edwin nervously began to retreat step by step. Luckily, Nikolai came to his aid in time, grabbed his pistol, and started shooting at Predator. However, under Predator's counterattack, Nikolai was immediately knocked to the ground. Looking at the approaching Predator, Edwin decided to run away. With Predator's hand outstretched, he stabbed Nikolai through the chest, and then he lifted him from the ground. Seeing that he had no chance of survival, Nikolai was no longer afraid and spat a mouthful of blood on Predator's face, then pressed a detonator. With an explosion, Nikolai and Predator chose to die together. A powerful shockwave began to sweep over everything. Luckily, everyone escaped at the last moment. Seeing that they had killed a Predator, Stans immediately yelled out in joy. However, in the next second, Stans was immediately knocked out, followed by a Predator who slowly lifted his invisibility. He had the absolute power to kill everyone in front of him. Just as the infrared was aimed at Royce, Stans got back up. He grabbed a dagger and attacked the Predator, screaming at the others to escape. Seeing that one of his prey had ruined his plan, Predator ripped out Stan's cervical vertebrae, and with his roar, the last Predator soon arrived. The intact Predator then began to pursue, leaving clear traces of the fleeing people on the ground in his line of sight. The rest of the group had already fled to a grassy area, but Hanzo, who was walking at the end, suddenly stopped and signaled the others to leave the area first, knowing that everyone would be killed if they continued like this. After the others left, Hanzo slowly removed his jacket and pulled out his katana. He wanted to die with the highest honor of a samurai. With Hanzo ready to go, Predator soon tracked him down. Faced with the provocation of his prey, Predator immediately flicked his blade. A primitive battle began immediately. Predator attacked first, and Hanzo hastily raised his katana to block. But because the Predator was stronger, Hanzo was quickly thrown out of the way. When Hanzo got back up, he immediately rushed toward his target again, but this time he immediately got a cut on his back. Hanzo knew he was no match for this, so he began to trade lives with Predator. Under Hanzo's desperate attack, Predator's abdomen was finally damaged. Hanzo saw this and raised his weapon again. This time, Predator was finally killed with a single blow. But Hanzo was also hit in the end, and then he also lost his life and died in the grass. Meanwhile, Edwin, who was running away, stepped on a trap accidentally. Although Isabel opened the trap immediately, Edwin was now incapacitated. Royce realizes that the trap is not meant to kill but to hold the enemy. He suggests that he and Isabel leave the area immediately or use Edwin as bait. This may be their last chance to survive. Facing Edwin's plea, Isabel finally chose to stay. Royce saw this and had to leave the place alone. He then re-entered Predator's camp. Now he has a daring plan. When Royce finds the classic Predator tied up here, he immediately tries to communicate with the target. He can get Predator back to freedom, and the only requirement is that he uses the spaceship to get out of there, and Predator clearly understands Royce's words. Before Predator can nod his head in agreement, Royce steps forward and cuts the chains that hold him captive. When Predator is free, he immediately grabs Royce's neck, but he didn't kill Royce after a moment of reflection. The Predators may be brutal, but they are also a race that keeps its promises. The classic Predator then picks up his mask, and after he puts his equipment back on, he immediately pulls up a star map of the universe. As the planets on it kept flashing, the image of Earth soon appeared on it. Seeing Royce's excited expression, Predator started the spaceship. On the other side, Isabel was helping Edwin to escape, but they soon stepped on a trap, and the last Predator was waiting for them. He then drags the prey back to the camp. By the time he had released his prey into the dungeon, that's when he also saw his enemy, and the classic Predator saw his archenemy appear in front of him. He went straight past Rose to the front. Next was the battle of the races between Predator. When Royce saw the battle was about to start, he immediately ran to the spacecraft. This is the battle between the Predator. Their strong bodies immediately collide together, but Berserker's body size is stronger. He directly knocked the classic Predator to the ground, but after he dodged the fatal blow, he immediately launched a counterattack against Berserker. Both Predators chose to fight in the most primitive way. The battle between the two sides was difficult to distinguish for a while, but Berserker was the first to use his energy weapon, and the shockwave immediately blew away the classic Predator. However, when Berserker came closer to see, he had disappeared. As he looked puzzled, the stealthy classic Predator immediately rushed over from the side. The two sides fought again, but classic Predator had been imprisoned before, and his strength had not recovered at all, and he had just been injured by the energy weapon. Under Berserker's constant attacks, he was quickly knocked off his mask. Seeing that the enemy had no more power to resist, Berserker removed his mask and let out a roar of victory. He then cut off the head of the classic Predator with a single slash, but then the battle did not end, and then Berserker ran to the spacecraft. But by the time he reached his destination, the spaceship had already successfully taken off. Berserker did not hesitate. He directly activated the ship's self-destruct program. Then the ship immediately exploded. At the same time, Edwin, who was locked in the dungeon, quietly took out a weapon and used a blade containing neurotoxin to cut Isabel. It turns out that Edwin is a psychopathic murderer. Seeing that there is no hope of escape, he prepares to use Isabel in exchange for his chance to live. However, at this moment, Royce reappeared here. It turns out that he did not board the spacecraft at all, and then he immediately rescued both of them. Isabel wanted to reveal Edwin's true face, but she couldn't do anything after being poisoned, and she couldn't even speak. However, when Edwin tried to attack, Royce suddenly rose and killed Edwin directly. It turned out that Royce had long been wary of Edwin, and no ordinary people could be caught here as prey. Then Royce began to use Edwin's corpse to set up traps. He sprinkled gunpowder all around the camp. When Berserker returned to the camp, he soon saw Edwin's corpse. Seeing that he was not completely dead, Berserker immediately flicked his blade. However, after he rolled over Edwin's body, the bomb set in advance was immediately detonated. Berserker was directly blown away, but because of the equipment protection, Berserker did not lose his fighting ability at this time. When he got back up, Royce appeared next to him. He was all over his body coated with mud, and then the surrounding area lit up a fire. This disables Berserker's heat tracking ability. Then Royce began to provoke. Berserker saw the situation and immediately rushed up, but Royce, with dexterity, too quickly dodged, and around the flames were constantly burning. Also let Berserker cannot see Royce's specific location. This immediately made him roar with anger. However, Royce then rushed out from behind him, but Royce quickly left after giving Berserker a heavy blow. Before Berserker could react, numerous attacks followed. Royce immediately hid behind a large tree after the constant attacks. However, With his violent movement, the rapid beating rate of his heart also allowed Berserker to capture his position. He then used his energy weapon, and Royce, hiding in the shadows, was directly blown away. Then Berserker immediately came over, facing this, repeatedly letting himself injure prey. He would not let Royce die easily, seeing that Berserker is approaching himself. Royce struggles to keep backing up, but Berserker soon caught up with him and immediately started beating Royce. When Berserker lost interest in continuing the torture, he raised his blade and tried to kill Royce completely. At this critical moment, Isabel finally took up the weapon. With a burst of gunfire, Berserker was immediately shot and lost his balance, giving Royce a chance to live. While Berserker has not yet reacted, Royce immediately picks up the weapon and begins to counterattack. Under Royce's continuous attacks, Berserker's head was soon covered with blood, but then Royce did not hesitate. He directly axed to cut off Berserker's head. At the end of the film, Royce and Isabel snuggled up together. At this time, a loud sound alarmed them until the two looked up but found from the air fell countless parachutes. This hunting game is not over yet. A new predator will soon descend on this place, but this time, Royce has found a way to beat them.